Welcome to another podcast of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. I'm Sean Ennis. I'm joined, as usual, with my partner in crime, David Soden. And today we're talking about a very common discussion point around every water cooler in the tech industry, which is AI impact, and specifically the Microsoft report. And so, David, can you take us through some of the basics of what this report's about and why is it important for anybody who's doing digital transformation to understand this?
Yep, sure thing. And to your credit, Sean actually is the one who set me up with not necessarily this article, but this has exploded everywhere. I picked Inc. because it's a very popular source everybody's familiar with. But the point here is that this article has exploded everywhere. And kind of as an oxymoron onto the topic is that Microsoft has laid off tremendously a bunch of people. So I found it very interesting that they were the ones that were part of the study and had tied their name to it because of kind of what's going on in the industry and also within their own company. So, the long short, or the setup rather, for this is that this study pretty much told everybody what I think everybody knew already. I mean, anybody in leadership kind of saw this coming. And with all technology that Sean and I talk about, it's always about the same technology, or rather the different technology, but the same ends justifying the same means, the same song and dance, just different shoes, different tool. And when it comes down to it, it really comes down to this particular study went out to over 2,000 real world conversations with just Copilot users. So this was like within Microsoft's purview, and just this whole information and case study that they came away with revealed some really, really interesting use cases. And those cases are really focused around which jobs are safe, which jobs are unsafe. And at the end of the day, like I said, I think pretty much every company is looking at this, trying to figure it out. And I would use this podcast to just encourage everybody to think about transformation in your business, transformation from the standpoint of use the technology the right way, set yourself up for success, and don't follow a lot of the hype that's out there. Sean and I try to do a really good job about not giving you the hype, trying to just give you the facts and give you at least a balance of really geeky technical stuff and a lot of high-level strategic stuff. Today is one of those high-level strategy or strategic side of things. And so I think, Sean and I have been in the game a long time, seeing a lot of this stuff unfold. And at the end of the day, what you want to look at is, how can I use AI with a human in their job role to bolster them? I've heard Sean say it, I don't know, probably a million times, but at this point, you want to have AI make the employee a superhuman, just a better version of yourself. So whatever you do well, AI should just enhance it or take it to the next level. And so you're going to see a lot of this here, but at the same time, there's certain areas or aspects you can just think right now, just think in your head before I do the reveal. What jobs would not make any sense at all to have AI in your day-to-day role if you were doing a job, right? And so if you've got a couple of jobs in mind, don't be too surprised if they wind up showing up on the list, because I think we all know that. And so at this stage, 98% of interpreters and translators, their heads in the guillotine. The historians, everything that was ever in the Encyclopedia Britannica plus Google is now on the chopping block, because this was the information, the data that the AI was trained on, for better, for worse. And then anybody in the creative aspect, writers, authors. Now, interestingly enough, I'll put a spin. This is not part of the study. This is conjecture, or my opinion. And Sean, chime in and you let me know your opinion. These types of things could be used if you're in a consultancy role, if you have your own business, or there's opportunity here for you. So if this is your sweet spot, this is what you do for a living, start thinking of interesting ways how you can use AI to enhance what you already do and produce value or a product or a service around that. That might save you from having to change career paths as all of this chaos unfolds. So as everybody's, freaking out, you might be one of the rare 5, 10, 1, I don't know, somewhere percentage in there of folks that could actually turn this negative into a positive. Sean?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, a lot of people are seeing this and going, "Oh no, I'm a teacher." Like, look, with some of these, you have to understand that there are situations. Think of yourself, right? And let's say, hey, I want to go to Japan, but I am worried about the language gap. So what this does is essentially eradicate that for the low quality side. Now, if I am a CEO of a Fortune 50 company and I'm going to Japan, am I going to have an interpreter translator with me? Absolutely, I will. So I want to be clear that what this talks about is the disruption. Like, disruption doesn't mean you lose your job. Disruption doesn't mean that that nobody will need you anymore. What it means is that, to your point earlier, your job may change, but you could easily switch from an interpreter to a concierge guide for tourists, right? So this is what's called transformation, and that's why we wanted to talk about this, is because you are all leaders, or we expect our audience to be leaders of transformation, and this is transformation targets. So if you have a team of people who are doing translation, you should probably have a conversation with them and see how AI can enhance and allow them to do new things or do other things. Because value is always there, you just need to find it.
I think one of the things that everybody, this will resonate with the majority of folks in the Fortune 100. Think about everything that you wish you could do that you just don't have the time to get to. And now you have the opportunity to do those things. You can put whatever you've been so focused on and automate a portion or somewhere in between of whatever that is. And now you have that growth transformation opportunity that you've never, ever had before. So the possibilities are unique. As a user of AI myself, one tip that I might give anybody reading or watching this is to think in terms. I'm even thinking about writing a blog on this particular topic too. And it comes down to, how do you approach having a conversation with AI to frame something, to get something out of it, to enhance whatever it is that you do and take it up to the next level. And I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. At least the formula that's been and is working for me is I take all of my knowledge, all of my skill, and I know the steps that need to happen in the order that they do. And I have a very high level consultative conversation. I treat AI like it's a consultant, to be honest with you. And I think if you tried that approach, that is good to juxtapose your ideas against the ideas that AI has been trained on. It is a way to enhance your gaps. And you tell AI, look, I don't want you to agree with me. I want some level of pushback. And by saying that and then framing, hey, I have this idea, and then you end up with, help me fill in the gaps, help me round it out, help me make it better, help me think of things that I haven't thought of, different perspectives, what am I missing, these types of things, right? And if you go into that mode, Then all of a sudden you start getting responses back and you're like, oh my God. And at the end of that consultative session, you ask it to create an outline based on everything that you've discussed and all of the things that you guys both agreed upon. And now that's your action plan to now flesh it out, to take it forward and rinse and repeat that. And that's just kind of the initial peak. But the bottom line is you can really start creating anything that's on this list and take what you're doing up to the next level. And if you can show that to your executive leadership or management in your position, you might not be so apt to be concerned to lose your job because you're bringing extra value to a different level. You're now that superhuman that Sean and I have been telling you about all these years.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely point out that one of the fallacies of generative AI is let's use generative AI to replace people. Now, Entrepreneur Magazine has a wonderful link around right now, only 5% are succeeding in generating value in that manner. 5%, right? So I would caution you on the thought process of eliminating headcount through AI. What you need to be thinking about is how AI can coach people up, round out, just as David said, round out their rough edges and make them a better executor of the corporation's will, right? So again, back in the day, you would have a developer, and then you would have a product owner, and you would have a tech writer, and you would have this, and you'd have this. Well, with AI, you could take a developer and have them do the tech writing too. You can have the developer do the QA too. And this would make your teams more resilient. That doesn't mean you need less people, because you could take a tech writer and make them be a developer too, right? So you're able, and I say this all the time at work. You're here not because of what your skills are. You're here because we like the work that you do, right? And whatever your role may be, we will make sure that you're successful. That's our job, right? So it comes down to helping people, coach them up, and AI as a coach is probably the best use case you can have right now for transformation. Is back in the day, we had an offshore tactic of you would have one person in the U.S., you'd have one person in nearshore and one person in offshore, and those three people would be a team.
Yep.
And so that means 24/7 that role was executing, and it was following the sun. It worked incredibly well. That same concept can be done with AI.
Yeah, and with no PTO time as well. So if you're following this to this point, these are some key high-level categorical areas of why their impact is essentially the way that it is. So categorically, even if you're not in any of the explicit jobs listening, categorically, if you fall into anything that does information processing, I want you to think of the negative as a positive. These are opportunities for you to level up, right? So if you're in information processing, or your job's in communication or PR or whatever, you're doing research. I find research on Claude and research on Perplexity. I kicked the tires a little bit with GPT-5 and somewhat impressed. I haven't had a lot of experience with it, so the jury's still out, but maybe I'll get back in another podcast about that. But I do think that the research capabilities are absolutely huge for you. But you can automate it, because I've done some of that too as well. And then if you're in the aspect of anything that has to do with content creation, these are all ubiquitous things that AI accelerates extremely well at. But again, spin that to your advantage, not a disadvantage for you. So on the flip side, this is the reveal of the question that I had asked initially from the onset of the podcast when we launched. I says, think of some jobs that would make absolutely no sense to use AI in or on if you're doing that. Now, there's a caveat to this. If you're in the strategy side of these roles, or you're a business owner of a Fortune X or even a small business owner, you would look at these and say, yeah, these people doing the work wouldn't necessarily. But that doesn't mean, again, Transformation Leaders Podcast is really about talking to leadership or business owners. So just because the labor force isn't using it, that doesn't mean strategically as a business owner that you should discount AI in these use case and scenarios. So I know that somewhat sends a mixed message, but if you're doing the work, you're good. If you're owning the company that does the work, this is where you have, yet again, another opportunity before you. Going back even to kind of the outline theory that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Maybe I'll come up with a name for my chaos theory or something. But yeah, if you're just looking and reading through the list here, I honestly, I looked at number 3 on the right column. I had no clue what that was. I had to look it up. I think that had to do with Sean. You had helped research that, if I remember correctly, when we had the conversation. That was somebody that takes blood from you at the doctor's office.
Yeah. And again, what I find most interesting about this is what they're not talking about. Now, I think 10 years from now, me and David are going to be telling our grandkids about how we lived through COVID, we lived through, 9/11, and we lived through the internet boom, we lived through the AI boom, and there's another boom coming, and that is automatons. So these jobs that you see may be safe from AI, but not safe very long. And if you've heard of Elon Musk's Optimus Prime, which again just shows how old I am when the billionaires are using references that you grew up with. But it comes down to, there's a lot of disruption that's going to happen. I joked with my dad the other day that we're all going to be YouTubers and bankers after these two different innovations really hit bottom. But it comes down to, a lot of these jobs may be affected soon there as well. So it comes down to, transformation is something that I believe sets us apart here in the States. We're always a little bit more resilient to change than other areas of the globe. And we should expect this, a lot of change. So how you can protect yourself and your loved ones. Like, I had this the other day. I was talking to a cousin of mine and said, well, what should I do? What should I teach my kids? And I said, you should teach your kids at AI. I said, download Grok for your phone and use voice mode, and make sure the kids are comfortable communicating, because communication skill, talking to people and talking to AI, is probably going to be the most important thing. It's not going to be typing.
Yep.
When I grew up, David, I don't know if you got this, but my dad said, you're going to have to learn to type. And it's the one skill that I learned very early in life that I use a ton of. And my dad was very smart in yelling at teachers. Yes, he is a male, but he needs to learn how to type.
I still type with these 6 fingers, and I kind of blame it on the early catechism upbringing that I had when I got my fingers smacked with a ruler. So,
I mean,
but to your point, I think one of the things that is a good takeaway for telling or teaching your kids what to do, and you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. I had this thought weeks ago, but you just surfaced it. So, I mean, the bottom line takeaway of what Sean says, once robotics meets AI, or if Boston Dynamics or Optimus Prime through Tesla meets OpenAI or the likes of OpenAI, and those two worlds come together, I don't think it's going to probably come together as quickly as AI has grown, but my spidey sense or sixth sense would say by 2036, 2035, that's where I think the turning point. Now, things could happen faster, maybe early 2030s, but somewhere between the early 2030s to the late 2030s, you're going to start to see all of this come together. And then the other thing to tell that Sean was mentioning, what to tell your kids, it's thought leadership. It's thinking. It's be a dreamer, because you're going to be, if you're a child in 2035, whatever you think of, whatever you conjure, whatever your imagination conjures up, you can create. Like AI will be able to essentially create a lot of the logic or whatever construct behind it. The robotics will do the execution piece of it if it's something in the physical world. But whatever you think of, it'll be a really interesting time to figure out how or what. Now, as far as transformation to those of us that are Sean's age or even our children, it's going to be painful. Maybe less for us, Sean and I, but for our kids, holy moly, it is really going to be Gen Z, Gen X. You guys are going to struggle really, really bad. This is going to hurt because it's hitting you like early and mid career, and you're going to have to adjust on the fly. And so there's just a lot of change. Get ahead of it. Learn some investing right now too. Make sure you're building your nest egg or plan B. Have multiple income streams, obviously. And so it's the inevitable is coming. But again, while there's bad news, that doesn't mean that it's all doom and gloom. You can still turn a negative into a positive. You just have to be willing to not be entrenched in your mind's eye and then go down that depressive thought pattern that'll get you locked into something really, really bad. So it really just determines how you think about your framing about all of this. So, here's pretty much a slide talking about what we've been talking about, this blue collar advantage, or, if we think in terms of Tesla and Boston Dynamics, the 10-year advantage, would that be a fair assessment? I don't think it would go any more than 15 years, but 10 years to me at that is about
you gotta ask yourself the question. Like today, my parents do not want to use apps. They do not want to use websites. They want to pick up the phone and talk to a human being to solve their problem, right? Our generation, we prefer to hit an app, right? Because then we could do it any time of day. Like, I get up super early, go to the gym, while I'm on the treadmill. Hey, if I could pay a bill and, clear up a problem while I'm on the treadmill, great. So it's going to be the same way. Like, I can tell you right now, in my age bracket, I do not want a robot cutting me up and doing surgery.
No. Yeah. No.
I don't want AI to fly my airplane. Right? So there are plenty of areas, and I would think in the trust and safety area, that there are pretty resilient jobs, even with these two different disruptions coming. And I joke, that YouTubers and bankers are all that's going to be left. But, you were talking about creative. Yes, if there's two things I'm teaching my kids, it is one, be creative, be the dreamer. Number two, communicate, right? Shockingly enough, both of my kids are extremely verbal. Probably my fault, but the bottom line is if you can dream it and you can communicate it, the future of our world means that you will be able to make things. And in the history of the world, creating useful things means you have value.
Yep.
Yep.
I wanted to bring this up since this is kind of dynamic on the fly. This is not sponsorship at all, but I remember hearing or seeing something, and there's lots of things out there. This is a monthly subscription for your children to get them engaged in thinking through problems. It's a little tech, it's a little science, it's a little innovation, it's a little physics, it's a little bit of everything. So these are the things you should be investing in your children to get them to think in really good and creative and interesting ways. Sean, I don't have any children at late age, but do you have any friends or even yourself? Are you anything like this happening for your?
Yeah, we were a big Kiwi crate household, but they kind of eased out of that, and now they're doing Mark Roberg's his Crunch Labs.
Yeah.
So there's always the opportunity here. My kids right now, they want to be inventors, and I'm like, great, go change the world, right? That's kind of what you want to do. But I mean, to ground this back, one of the things that this report kind of scares people is the higher your education, the higher where AI is going to impact you, which is another area that, frankly, I think is cool. A lot of people aren't talking about it. But I think the collegiate education system is going to be terribly disrupted. The cost of college degrees and that the value of that college degree has never been lower. I shared, David, I don't know if you saw that link where a wonderful lady graduated, I think it was from Stanford, with a master's degree in computer science, cannot find a job.
No.
So entry level, there has never been a worse time to graduate college right now in a tech field, because the entry level is been obliterated by AI.
Yep.
And I make the joke, and I had David laughing before we started, that this AI bubble is an inverse of the internet bubble that we lived through, where in the internet bubble, that's how I got my start. I got into consulting while still in college because they needed consultants. And I was given an opportunity, and I grew tremendously because of that opportunity. And then, like many others, I was laid off at the bomb. And now with AI, we're seeing this completely in reverse. A lot of people are being negatively impacted, whether they can't get an entry-level position, or they're being laid off because there's this belief that AI will magically reduce how much work there needs to be done. And then when this bubble were to pop, I'm sure all those tech jobs would come rushing back in, because we still need the work done. And I don't think AI does a great job of work. I think AI does a great job of helping workers. And this symbiotic relationship with AI and workers is heavily discounted in this industry right now, which is sad to say, because this is why you're seeing people not getting the value. And at some point, either A, they're going to blame the technology, which would be wrong, or they're going to wise up and understand that there is always a right way and a wrong way to do things.
Yeah, if you're in college right now and you're listening to this, for whatever reason you come across this, I would just simply encourage you to do as many opportunities as, obviously, if you can get paid, that's awesome, right? But if you have a free opportunity to go in and intern at a company, Get that under your belt. You need to get that experience. The problem is AI, as Sean was saying, is simply obliterating the market and the opportunity stack for you. But if you can come in already ready to go and you kind of leapfrog that entry level with proven experience, and that'll kind of fast track you to the higher end of entry level to maybe mid-level. While you're interning, do side projects. Have a portfolio built up of applying the skill that you've learned, that you've invested so heavily in, and build that portfolio up. The key is to leapfrog the entry level. Come in as a seasoned professional. Get on LinkedIn. Use your social networking. Get people to say, hey, I use this POC or this product or this whatever it is that you created, and I found value in it. By showing that, two things are going to happen. A, hopefully you'll leapfrog the entry level piece of it, but on the flip side of it, you might be able to immediately catch the interest of an investor, and or you may wind up finding yourself, hey, listen, I've got so much experience in this one area and so many lessons learned, I don't need a company. I can just do this on my own. And now you're an entrepreneur. So there's ways around it, but again, the transformation from literally college grad level to executive leadership, everybody, all age spectrums, all gen, whatever, is going to be impacted by this. And so hopefully Sean and I have given some framing for you guys here on how to kind of deal with some of that, or at least some thoughts on that. So, I mean, at the bottom line here, Microsoft says that our research shows, and I'm sorry for reading to you because I know you guys can read, but just to kind of focus us, our research shows AI support many tasks, but does not indicate it can fully perform a single occupation. And that is true. It can't do a single occupation. It does your task work for you. I don't know anybody that shows up at work and literally like a factory worker stands there and pulls the proverbial lever all day long. Robotics has already eliminated a lot of those jobs. Anything that you're doing in the professional office environment, you have tasks, different hats you wear. You do this, you do this, you do that. AI will automate some of that. AI will help you accelerate some of that. If you've got a backlog, it can hopefully help you eliminate that. So think in those types of terms. What do you have to add to any type of advice for people at any spectrum to just kind of, help them get over the hump, or different thinking or framings based on everything that we've talked here today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my first thought goes to, the old adage, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand this is coming from, Copilot. So if you've used Copilot, you very well may have been part of this. They took everybody's job, what their job code is. They took what kind of queries that they do, and they just juxtaposed value. So, again, there's a lot of mathing and lying in here to produce this report. But if you look at it, there's a lot of common sense. So, just make sure you understand that the science of this report is not the same thing that, you get in the academic world of peer reviewing papers and such. So, take this with a grain of salt. Where it makes sense, great. The other thing is, and I touched on it before, is you've got to understand experts in the fields of like historians and mathematics and physics. They're going to be attacked from both angles because, number one, their bastion is typically in academia, and academia is going to be attacked because the value of a college degree is decreasing. Number two is their value outside of academia is going to be decreased. So there's definitely areas where you really need to have a plan B. So like I certainly kind of point to that. And it comes down to we could very well see a tremendous change in the education and teaching fields with AI because of its coaching capability. I can tell you this. AI saves me personally, Sean Ennis, time because I don't know how many times that I'm running into a problem. You know, the Google did a great job of this. Hey, the toilet sink, the toilet or the sink is broken. Like, what can I do to fix it? Okay, do these. Here's the videos. Go to YouTube. This, that, and the other. And it will very well save you time and money from a perspective of maybe you don't need an expert. Maybe you as an individual can do and be more a DIYer. YouTube certified used to be a joke, but now AI is really helping me. I know that I have done things because of AI that I never thought I'd be capable of doing without AI because it lowered the bar for me. Is that a bad thing? Would I have really paid a high-priced expert, or would I have just gone without that value? Most likely, I just would have gone without that value. I'd waited for it to completely fail before I replaced it. So, there's a lot more nuance in the world than most people are willing to admit. And I would heavily take this with a grain of salt. But to me, the value of this report is to use this to talk to my peers and say, what should we be doing? What can we be doing to help reinforce our people and grow them better? Because better employees means better outcomes for everybody.
This is true. Well said. And I have myself probably cranked out 120 to 80 hours, somewhere in that range of work in a week. And it's just been incredible. And yeah, I completely, when you said that, you used AI to get the value out of, what you normally would have just said, I don't even want to bother with it. I can't tell you how many things. Matter of fact, one of the first books, I never wrote books. I'm not one to do that because my punctuation and grammar is at best. And so I'm like, you know what? AI can polish this and I don't have to pay a publicist to do that. So I'm like, all right, now that gave me the courage to go out there and do it. And now it's on there on Amazon. So, hey, way to go AI, right? So that's a perfect use case to kind of back up personally how it impacted even my life. And it definitely can impact your life too. You guys have seen this QR code that I had on the screen for a little bit. This is the QR code. We're going to try to start this trend as we have these types of podcasts. At the end, we'll be providing this QR code for you to download today's presentation so that you can go and reference it on your own accord or reference it at some point if you'd like. That'll keep the conversation going. And we also have the Transformation Leaders podcast that you can go to at any given time. Catch up on any past shows that you see. You also can meet Sean and I on LinkedIn. Make a connection. I can't tell you how many connections I've had with people that have come through and just connected. Hey, I caught your podcast, blah, 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 blah. Sean's had a lot of this happen for him as well. And down at the very bottom, if you want to hit kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, just fill out this form and it'll go directly to Sean and myself. And one of us will get back to you if there's a question in there. Other than that, we are definitely here every Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. And that's it for this week's podcast. We'll see you guys on the next show. Have a great day.